Since the emergence of the Omicron COVID-19 variant, Nigeria has had countries like the United Kingdom, Canada and Saudi Arabia slam shut its travel doors against citizens, an action that has elicited mixed reactions. The Presidential Steering Committee is now instituting diplomatic action that it hopes will induce the right responses from these countries, stating further actions if not.
Based on existing relationships, Nigeria has initiated diplomatic steps to make these countries reverse their course. This is ongoing in the interest of all parties concerned, and we expect that positive results would emerge within the next 1 week. The PSC also evaluated the developments on the relationship between Nigeria and the UAE, and we are pleased to inform you that the position of the federal government is in line with the established ICAO protocols and the spirit of the bilateral air services agreement signed with the UAE. We strongly believe that they will respond and delist Nigeria. If not, it doesn't make any sense for us to continue to put our citizens to risk. We will take the necessary steps to protect our citizens.
Again, the aviation minister makes it clear that his office is yet to receive a purported letter currently circulating on the social media stating a travel restriction update from the UAE suspending the acceptance of passengers to the UAE.
The social media letter that was written by them was released is yet to be on my desk as at 4 p.m. today. I've been in my office until now. I have not received it. And I cannot receive a letter direct from them. It ought to come through diplomatic channels.
Vaccines will be destroyed in line with environmental protocols, according to the Executive Director of the National Primary Health Care Development Agency, Dr. Faisal Shuaib.
We are working with NAFDAC to schedule a date for when this destruction will take place. There are protocols that NAFDAC and the Abuja Environmental Protection Agency will have to go through. Once all of those are aligned, we will communicate to the general populace and particularly to the media.
The PSC maintains that so far, the death toll from the COVID-19 vaccine has been below 3,000 as the committee works to disseminate millions of vaccines to as many communities as possible. Gloria Umezuke, Channels Television News.
So now the conversations will go from place to place about diplomatic relations vis-a-vis COVID-19 restrictions, vis-a-vis economy, and so many other angles to that same one single story. But this morning, what are the perspectives to be looked at and what are the authorities to do? You've listened to the Minister of Aviation, Adisirika, say his part, and we, according to him, are expecting a response from those other nations. What are the options? Well, this morning, Sunday Audu joins us. He's Associate Professor, Department of Political Science and Public Administration of the Babcock University. He holds a PhD in Political Science with specialization in peace and conflict and international relations. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Thank you very much.
Also joining us is someone who knows about his space very well, and that is Captain Adusinusi. He is an aviation expert now and has run the affairs of quite a number of airlines. Thanks for joining us this morning, Captain. Maybe I should start with you. First of all, your thoughts on this ongoing conversations, let me just put it at that, between Nigeria and the UAE and a number of other countries that have said, Nigerians, hold your own for now.
Okay, thank you very much for having me. There are two aspects to this. There is the aspects of the COVID-19, which caused some countries to actually say Nigerians shouldn't come to their country. And there is another aspect, which is the aspect of the bilateral air service agreement, which doesn't allow our airplanes or our airlines to go into the country. But all this is purely diplomatic issues that needs to be resolved through diplomatic channels. Even the bilateral air service agreement, the only part of aviation is the execution of the agreement that has been signed between two countries, two sovereign countries. So the whole challenge or the whole problems that is being faced is, I think it's something that needs to be channeled through the diplomatic route to make sure that the countries that are either violating the bilateral air service agreement or not respecting it, diplomatically, we need to bring them back to the table and let them understand that Nigeria will not accept any kind of violation of an agreement signed by two countries. Now, there are so many aspects to bilateral service, air service agreement. The first is the frequencies. Second is the freedom rights, which means that you can come into my country and carry passengers, or you can come into my country and drop passengers, or you can fly over my country. These freedoms go all the way to fifth freedom rights. But then there's another aspect to the bilateral agreement, which is when you come into my country, which airports are on. And that's where the countries use that as a last bargaining tool to protect their own industry and to protect their own trade and commerce. And if not do the same, we will just be a country that will be always saying they are not respecting the BASA agreement. But in actual fact, they will say that you can come to our country, but you cannot land in airport A or B. And now we as a country, we have to understand that and then strategically either agree in the BASA agreement, or we too, when we come back to our country, we dictate the number of airports, the kind of airports they will land in.
Do you think that BASA agreement and a number of other, agreements factored in such situations as a pandemic as we have on our hands now?
Yes, and this is not, I don't think is that are saying that we should not come into that country. They are violating the BASA. They are putting a restriction to our citizens going to the country because the alleged thinking that we have the new variant Omicron. But it does not stop the BASA agreement. It's just a restriction which I believe is temporary when the pandemic is over, it will resume, the normal flights will resume. Just as if you remember, when all the airports were closed, or all the countries closed their borders during the total lockdown, there was nothing like BASA because we had an emergency of a pandemic. The issue is, again, purely diplomatic. It has nothing to do with BASA as far as Omicron is concerned. And I think it should be handled that way. The only thing, IATA has said it way before the opening of the lockdown in the first instance in early 2020 or middle 2020, when they were warning and cautioning countries that please do not discriminate and let's have a universal way of testing, universal way of entering countries or entering borders so that we do not discriminate from other countries. And ICAO has always been very, very vocal on that issue, United Nations and all the bodies. And if you look at it, it's all diplomatic channels they are using. It's not actually a bilateral air service agreement problem. It is a problem because of the pandemic, and I believe diplomatic channels should be used to handle that.
Well, Dr. Audu, he thinks it's purely diplomatic and has little, maybe nothing to do with health. What's your take?
Well, thank you for having me here. I key in with what he's saying. Looking at the international health regulations, there is the provision that countries should not, limit or stop anyone from going into their borders, the studies have shown that such actions have done little to stem the spread of, diseases in terms of pandemics like this. If you heard comments from other authorities saying this is not an endemic, it's a pandemic. So if it was restricted to a particular country, say when Ebola came, one can pinpoint and say it's from the Democratic Republic of Congo or other countries that are, known to harbor such infections. But this is a pandemic, and studies have shown that closing the borders or banning people or red listing them, that has done little to stop the spread. So I see it not as a health issue. I commend the steps taken by the federal government via the pronouncement of the minister, Senator Hadi Sirika, to take it diplomatically. In cases and situations like this, it's better to judge than to war. Initially, the first response was to begin to issue out threats and retaliatory, insinuations. But I think this attempt to approach it diplomatically is very good. Maybe later I will mention some data, some statistics to see. But look at it. The recent ban by the UK was based on about three things. One, that the country, that is Nigeria, is seen to have the prevalence of the Omicron variant. I don't know the facts used or the data used for that. Secondly, that there are infections that manifested in the UK traceable to people who traveled from Nigeria. And thirdly, that Nigeria has a strong travel links with South Africa. Now, bad for us, when the ban was announced against South Africa, the President Cyril Ramaphosa came in here, and as we all know, he's undergoing treatment for COVID. Whether that is helping our case or not, well, we wish him good health. But the entire South African region, the countries there, 10 of them were red listed, and Nigeria recently got added. I must say, this is not the first time such a step has been taken, but studies have shown that that has done little to stop the spread. If you look at countries that have shut their borders, New Zealand, Australia, I think for about 18 months, yet, that did not stop it. So I don't see that as strictly a health step taken, rather it's a diplomatic one. If the UK has an axe to grind with South Africa and Nigeria is roped into it, well, that will be sorted out diplomatically. But by the provisions of the international health regulations, what the UK, the UAE, Argentina, Canada, and other countries are doing is not right. Although we need to balance that with the concept of consent and reciprocity. Nigeria is trying to retaliate. If you look at the news, Nigeria has listed some countries to also restrict from coming into her borders. So how that works out, the future will let us know.
The question then would be, on what premise then were those decisions taken by those countries? Because, right now, if what you're saying is anything to go by, they are diplomatic decisions, not, as some have claimed, not evidence-based, not science-based, decisions. Captain Sanusi has also said the same thing. So I'm just wondering, what should the response of Nigeria be now? For now, we know what the federal government is thinking about reaching out diplomatically, especially the conversations around Nigeria, UAE,
Argentina, Canada,
and all those, things. Some of them have been wobbly for a bit. It's like there's been some rough weather up until this moment where the red listing or the ban has been outright and everything. And there are also talks about the fact that, okay, maybe there's been a reversal of that decision from the UAE in particular. So what then are the options for Nigeria?
Okay, I think Captain Ado made a statement looking at what happened recently between Nigeria and the UAE, this row about air peace, about the Emirates. So one begins to wonder, has it anything to do with that? More so that the UAE is not just banning flights directly from Nigeria, but any other airline taking a Nigerian citizen into their country. I think if I get those points very clearly. The option left for Nigeria is actually diplomatic in nature, because look at the basis, the premise upon which the ban or the red listing was, carried out. One, that they suspect there is a high prevalence of the Omicron variant in Nigeria here. I think from reports, I'm not sure up to 10 cases have been reported of that variant. Two, that about 3 or 7 people traveling to the UK were tested positive, and they had traveled, from Nigeria to the UK, and that Nigeria has travel links with South Africa. Like I mentioned, too bad for us. The president visited here, and now he's down. He went to a funeral service and he came down with symptoms. So Nigeria needs to pursue it diplomatically. But I must say, maybe there is good reason based on our attitude in handling the entire thing. For example, look at the tests, the vaccines. Nigerians are reluctant to do that. Could it be the government has not worked enough, mobilized enough, sensitized enough the citizens to go for the vaccines? There are all sorts of sentiments and emotions attached to this vaccination issue. People have attached religious, spiritual, prophetic insinuations. People have brought health issues. You do it, you get paralyzed. Remember the polio debate and the drama up north. And so it's an attitudinal thing. Maybe the government has not really done enough. That should be the place to begin. If the international community sees the government serious enough in pushing, promoting this vaccine matter, encouraging citizens to go take the jab, probably that will convince the international community that we are serious about it. Now, some figures here. For example, according to the latest numbers from the World Health Organization dashboard, you check that out. As of this morning, 2 people out of 100 have been vaccinated fully in Nigeria. 2. Our next door neighbors, Benin, 8 people out of 100 have been vaccinated fully. Togo, 10 people out of 100 have been vaccinated fully. Ghana, 6 people out of 100. Kenya, 6 people out of 100. Libya is at war. They have done more than 10 people per 100 members of the population. Now, South Africa, that has brought this upon us, they will permit me if they hear this, they have done 24 out of 100. And the UK, we are threatening, UK has done 64 over 100. UAE has done more than that. So, these figures I mentioned, there are other bad ones anyway, but you should not compare yourself with those you are doing better than. You should compare yourself with those who are doing better than you. Looking at our immediate neighbors, their figures are encouraging. We have done only 2 out of 100. What would the government do? So let's begin in-house, then we can project what we have done, because those facts and statistics are there for the world to see. So looking at the WHO dashboard, could it be the UK is considering that in taking this very decision?
Okay.
Well, while the UK, might be having a, we do not know. There have been conflicting stories. One says, oh, it's not going to force them to, the Nigerian threat is not going to force them to rescind it. But from what we are seeing of the minister's comment, it looks like we could be getting off the red list sometime soon. But what is unprecedented, however, is the reaction of the UAE. This is for Captain Ado Sanusi. I'm wondering, we didn't see this particular reaction of the UAE coming, and we have to ask, how have our own, even though Nigeria doesn't have a national carrier, would you say that Nigerian airlines who are attempting to go to Dubai, to also try to make something out of that route, which could be lucrative, have been given a fair chance by the UAE?
Yeah, as I said, the bilateral air service agreement allows airlines, multiple airlines, to go into any country as per the agreement. Like in the United States and Nigeria, we have open sky. That means unlimited number of frequencies, unlimited number of airlines as far as they pass the regulatory hurdles that will be given by each sovereign country. So for UAE and Nigeria, I believe maybe we missed the point when we went for the BASA agreement, when we supposed to define the airports and the airlines that will be flying into the country. I'm talking from experience. I mean, when we were fighting in Arik, when I was the DFO there fighting to get slots into Heathrow, it was the same problem. They would give you a frequency. They would say you have 21 frequency into the UK, but you are on your own to go and discuss slot allocation at the airports. Now, the airport system outside in developed countries where the airport capacities are usually above 90%, they institute what they call slot allocation. It means they will allocate slots, and if they don't have enough slots based on the capacity of the airport, air traffic control, ground control, and the rest of the things, even passenger and baggage control, and the rest of, they will look at it, and if they cannot manage, let's say 100 or 200 or 300, whatever the number is, flights per day, then you are out. They will tell you that, look, we can't accept you in this, take another airport. Now, unfortunately, we don't have slot allocation committee in Nigeria. We don't have at Murtala Mohammed Airport or Nnamdi Azikiwe Airport in in Abuja. We don't have those slot allocation committee, or in Port Harcourt or Kano, the international airports, because they are not utilized to that capacity. Now, if Airpeace goes to UAE and says, look, based on BASA, I have 21 frequency, of course, they will say yes, but what are the airports that you'll be landing? We allow you to come into UAE. We don't have a problem, 21 times. That's the same thing we are going into your country. But go and negotiate with the airports authority in Dubai World, in Sharjah, in other airports, in Abu Dhabi, any other airports that are in the UAE. And so if we as a country know that this is our own deficiencies and this is our own shortcomings, so when we go for the BASA agreement, I believe we should put that into consideration. And I think that the BASA agreement should also be diplomatic in nature, because diplomats are trained to negotiate all those kinds of subjects, and then they should carry along the aviation sector, which will be the implementer of the agreement. And then they will ask, of course, what are the technical questions and what are the hidden things that might come up, like the slot allocation. This slot allocation is not the first time. I mean, we fought in Heathrow for slot allocation. We couldn't get them when I was in Arik out of Abuja, because the developed countries are protecting their airlines, they are protecting their carriers. And we cannot do reciprocity in this case because we are at a disadvantaged position. If you want to do reciprocity position in this, the Nigerian public will suffer more. If we now do it diplomatically and, of course, talking from hindsight, and see that by the time we go to these negotiations, we put our best diplomats and we put the best aviation experts to ensure that we cover our shortcomings in our country. I think it will go a long way. And I believe at the end of the day, we can pressurize Emirates to help us pressurize the Sharjah airport system for Airpeace to be accepted in Sharjah. We can do that. We did that with British Airways and Virgin Atlantic during Arik days going to Heathrow. And they actually assisted us to get the 7 slots we got were in Heathrow, which was even more difficult than Sharjah. And of course they couldn't give us more than 7, and British Airways through BMI, another local carrier in UK, sold the slots. They sold it in such a way that you can never make profit while you go into Heathrow from Abuja, because they want to protect their carriers coming into Abuja. It's the same thing that they are doing in all developed countries. I mean, UAE might be protecting their cargo because probably Sharjah is a good cargo airport, so they see that maybe Air Peace is taking a chunk of the cargo, so they are protecting that aspect of their trade. So when you go for this BASA negotiation, you should go with your trade, you should go with your diplomats, you should go with all that to see and make sure that Nigeria is not shortchanged. Usually reacting reciprocity is a good thing, but you have to also look at what will be the consequences and what will be the effect. And if the overall effect does not give majority of Nigerians or does not give the country the economic benefit, then I believe diplomacy will have to come in and give and take.
Well, it's definitely an ongoing conversation, and one can only hope and expect that at least the federal government knows what it's doing. Well, in rounding off, Dr. Audu, what are your expectations of what government should do to intervene in this matter, ensuring at the end of the day that everything that's worth considering is considered, especially because the organized private sector in Nigeria is already flagging this principle of reciprocity as a danger sign for them?
Yeah, it's true. I mentioned earlier, Nigeria is a sovereign nation, and the other countries involved are signatories to the international health regulations. And they are not expected under international convention to restrict or list anyone. But again, in international law, you look at your sovereignty, your national interest, then you consider the issue of consent and reciprocity. Okay. Now, you have options. But looking at our national interest, we must consider the points you raised. Now, just a divergence, but an illustration. Currently there is the diplomatic row between China and some of the great powers over the Beijing Winter Olympics, where, the US and other countries have planned a diplomatic boycott. Now, look at it this way. It may work out and satisfy the political ego of these great powers. But look at the individual athletes that have taken time to practice this may lead to outright boycott.
Which of course, China is already threatening that. Look, exactly. We can also have our own way of response.
Exactly. Again, so if we consider that, so I think what is left for us is that diplomatic approach. Okay. Captain Ado mentioned it. This travel apartheid, if we look at apartheid itself, it was diplomacy that solved it, not war. Okay. So Nigeria should look at that, pursue the diplomatic route, and sort these problems out.
Well, as we already know, the federal government is looking in the diplomatic angle, and we can only wait for the outcome. Sunday Audu, Associate Professor, Department of Political Science and Public Administration at Babcock University, as well as a PhD holder in political science with specialization in peace and conflict and international relations. Thank you very much for your time this morning.
Thank you for having me.
As well as Captain Ado Sanusi, aviation expert and analyst. Thank you so much for your time this morning.